Well, I think whenever we read what we call Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, it may not have been the first letter. There might have been others. We're not really sure. But whenever we read Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, I think it's really important to remember that, first of all, it's a letter. Now, letters are things that people used to write to each other before there was email or Twitter or texting. And they were sometimes on paper and documents. Sometimes people typed them. Typing was when there was a typewriter, this machine that you could press and it would give... Okay. Move on. It's a letter is the thing. And the thing about letters is letters get written because you have something to say, first of all. And secondly, because you have something to say to someone. That's why you write a letter. Whether that's one person or many people, you have something to say to them. So I think it's important to remember who the letter is written to. So people had heard, in fact, they'd probably heard about this Jesus, because people traveled around a lot, and they probably heard about this Jesus, and then along comes somebody, Paul, who says, here's the story of Jesus. Here is this good news. Somebody comes along and evangelizes, right? And shares the story of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus. In fact, enough of the teachings of Jesus that some people went, let's get together on a regular basis, and maybe we could, in fact, let's get together as a community, and we'll talk about Jesus, and we'll learn about Jesus, and we'll talk about how we can live like Jesus, and we'll share all of these ideas of Jesus and things, and we recognize that some of them are actually not really new, but we like the way Jesus tells them. We like the way Jesus teaches them. We like the way we've heard this story about new life and love and grace and all this stuff. We're gonna make a community, and so they do. And then they discover how hard that is, for real. How easy it is to talk about it and learn about it and hear about it, and how challenging it can be to live. And there are a number of reasons for that, of course. First of all, when people heard about Jesus, not everybody wanted to hear about Jesus. Some people didn't care. Some people were fine just the way things were. Some people liked what Jesus said, but then as it started to sound like it was going to be a little bit of work, we lost a few people. And then, of course, there were the people who thought what Jesus taught was threatening. In fact, so threatening, we should get rid of that, because it threatens who I am and how I am, and I don't like that, so let's do away with it. Might have been a good idea to find out more about it, but that's not the point. People weren't really interested in finding out more. So we end up with a small group of people. But also, that small group of people were, people, and everyone's different, right? And not only is everyone different because we're all individuals, but everyone's also different in terms of where they come from in life. There might have been, in this community, there might have been people who were quite wealthy, quite well off. There might have been people who were not, who had nothing. There might have been people who had jobs and work. There might have been people who had nothing. There might have been people whose job was something a little bit less than desirable, let's say. There might have been people who had jobs that were the kind of job everybody would love to have. There were people who were from different cultures. There were people from different backgrounds, from different, maybe even different religions too, coming to hear this story of Jesus. There was a lot of different views, a lot of different perspectives, because everybody had their own. And when you come together to share those, sometimes that doesn't always go as well as you would like it to, even if your point of gathering is the person who says, we are one. So there's problems. There's problems, first of all, because when people come together and then go away, and come together and then go away, what they go away to is their regular Monday to Friday. And sometimes what you learn in that getting together is hard to implement in the rest of the world because, well, not everybody agrees with you. Not everybody follows that same line of thinking. Not everyone is, what's a good word? The same. And so when you try and take it out into the bigger world, it becomes even harder. It's even more of a struggle. And so you come back to the gathering and you want to be inspired. You want to be refreshed. You want to hear more of how you can live like this. And everybody has a different view of that, particularly when you gather with people who come from different backgrounds. And sometimes when you get together, not everyone agrees on things, like, say, who's in charge. Not everyone agrees on how much authority that person who's in charge has. And in fact, as a small community, and this generally applies, I think, to the world, sometimes we don't all agree on whether the person who has the authority to do what we thought that person had the authority to do in exercising their authority. Sometimes we don't like how they exercise their authority, and we have something to say about that. Because sometimes the person who's in charge looks at the group and goes, okay, this is good for the group, but one or two people are not going to like it. And then what do? Then you have to have a conversation about what's good for the community and what's good for the individual. Sometimes those conversations don't go well. Sometimes it's about who has the money and where does it go. Sometimes when the person who's the leader stands up and says, okay, we're going to gather up this much from everybody, and then we're going to use it. You're going to use it for what exactly? Because I only have like 2 pennies, but that guy has lots. So I want to know where it's going. In fact, quite often that works the other way around. It's the person who has the most who wants to know where it's going. The person who has the least tends to go, okay, let's do something with that. But then you also run into things like you have, say, a gathering and people want to share food afterwards, and then you got the people who bring the really nice food because they can, and the people who can bring like almost nothing because that's what they have, and you get some disagreement around that. That was actually a particular problem in those days. Sometimes the issues are around how you, when you gather, what rituals do you do? How do you do those rituals? What songs are you going to sing? Does everyone know that song? No, let's learn a new song. No, I'm not learning any new songs. These are all issues that need to be addressed. And no matter how often people are reminded that it began with gathering in community around the idea that we should love each other like Jesus, it's hard. So Paul writes a letter. And he has some thoughts about this. He has some suggestions, some ideas about things, particularly around authority and what things you do as part of your gathering, your practices, as it were. He has some ideas around the sharing of wealth and food and all of that kind of stuff. In particular, he has some really interesting thoughts about diversity and the uniqueness of the individual within the community. And so he starts talking about how there are many gifts. We all have our own unique individual gifts, but those gifts all come from one Spirit. That there's one Spirit that connects us all, even though our gifts are all different. Because the point of us all having those different gifts is for us to come together, to share those gifts. Because we need all those. You know what? It's like we were all part of a body. All the parts of the body are important. All the parts of the body are important. In fact, it's like each of us are a member, a body part of the body, and we need all those parts. Now, I know you're going to get concerned about which body part you are, but don't be concerned about that, because we need all of the parts of the body in order for there to be wholeness. And see, that's the thing, is that's where we get to talk about belonging. Is that belonging isn't just what you contribute to the body, it's what the body contributes to you. It's how the body is changed, its sense of wholeness is changed by you being part of it. Which is why Paul says the parts of the body that we tend to think are the most useless or are the most unnecessary, are the most, those parts we don't want to talk about, those parts. You don't talk about those parts in public. Those parts are the most important. And it's important to remember that whatever part you are, whatever part of the body it is, when one part of the body is hurt or suffering or broken, the whole body needs to be part of the healing. It's like we are one body, but each of us is a different member. You know what? This is all great. This is all great stuff, but I'll tell you what. I can say whatever I want to encourage you. I can give you all the ideas in the world about what you can do about stuff. But if it's just words, it's just noise. It's just noise, because you need what's at the heart of it. What you need to recognize is not that if you do all this stuff, you'll be doing love. It's that love is what drives the doing of all this stuff. Love is what's behind it. Not even behind it, but within it, around it. It is what all these things are. So that's why love is about being patient with others, being patient and understanding enough to hear their story, and to hear the story as they tell it, not as how you want to hear it. Love is about kindness. It's about being kind to others. It's about caring for all around you. Because remember how if you care for all the parts of the body need to be cared for by the whole? Remember that part? You can do that all you want, but if there's no love in it. Let me go back again, though, because I think it's important to remember that you can't just kind of say love is this, love is this, love is this, because love's a verb. It's the doing of those things. You don't just point at love like it's some statue and go, oh, look, that's what it is. No, it's a living, breathing thing because it's life and breath. It's what all of these things are. That's why it's not hate. That's why it's not hurting It's why it's not power over others. That's why it's not that's why it's not envy of others. That's why it's not being mean or rude or hurtful to others. Because it's life-giving. Love is life-giving. It's creating. It's creative. It's spirit and inspiration. It also is always. And that's why it's able to be that very thing, is that it's always. It's not just in this life, it's in the life we come from and the life we go to. It is from the beginning to the end. It is the power of creation in the earliest creation stories. It's the power of life. And that means it's the power that connects us. It's the power that inspires us. It's the power that drives us. It's a power of creation and creativity. It's all of those things that make who we are and how we are. It's where all of those practices come from. It's where all those acts of kindness come from, where all of those things that we do that are creative and life-giving come from. And that has been from the beginning and will always be. In this life, in the life to come, in the life we came from. Okay, so let's be clear that even as a community of faith who's in the hope business, the most important thing is still going to be love. You can practice your faith and you can have hope. It's still love that's behind all of that. All right, I'm going to get back to all of the other stuff now. And then he gets to the end of the letter and signs off, and off the letter goes. So I think it's important to consider who the letter's for. It's for you. It's for me. It was not just specifically addressed to people living in Corinth at a particular time. Because if we do that, we get to go, oh yeah, we'll put it over there on the shelf. It's for you and it's for me. One of the things that I notice that I just love so much about all of this, and read the whole thing, read the whole letter. But one of the things I love most about it is he starts talking about all of the things that you are and how you can do this and you can do that. And you are many gifts. You are one spirit. You are all parts of the one body. And then he goes, if I speak without love, it's meaningless. If I act without love, it's nothing. Whatever I do, I will gain nothing from it unless there is love. The moment Paul starts talking about love, he starts to say I. And the only time he says we is when he means this life, this wholeness, whatever this thing is. Because that's the thing about love. It's in you and me and in all things. And when we talk about love, when we speak it and act it and live it into being, it's I. Sharing with you because we are.